A thriving solar consciousness will exhibit the traits of the sun in Aries. But this doesn't mean that if you have the sun in Aries, you're automatically a thriving solar person. Your sun can be in any sign, but if your solar consciousness is healthy, at this point in your life, you will be taking on the characteristics of the sun being exalted in Aries. And Aries is the most compatible of the 12 signs for the sun. Living a life embodying the sun in Aries means being confident in taking risks for the sake of your ambitions to live completely as yourself. You can best visualize Aries as a massive mountain, and the sun within you is this solar mountaineer. So the sun is looking at that mountain, and it sees that that mountain is your life's ambition. It's the most meaningful thing that you can imagine that you can accomplish, what is most important to you and to you alone. So the thing about the mountain is that you're not able to climb it in one day, 1 week, or even 1 year. It takes the majority of your life to even get near to the peak. And you can think of the peak as the point when you're expressing yourself in the purest state possible. And you can think about that in the day-to-day sense of waking up in the morning and jumping out of bed because you can't wait to live your life and do what it is that you do. Now, that life's work can be anything. It could be a gardener. It could be the CEO of a Fortune 500 company. It could be a stay-at-home mom. It's whatever it is that your soul is most inspired to do in this lifetime. So that's why the sun is the most important planet to our core personality. It's the soul that's shining through as brightly as possible, and then everything else about your life ends up falling in line. So that's how a person naturally builds confidence and self-esteem, which are the telltale signs of a healthy solar consciousness. And as the first thing I said was taking that risk to do that. Climbing a mountain is not easy. There's a lot of danger associated with it. But the healthy solar consciousness is ready and willing to take those risks and to do things that maybe other people will say you're crazy for doing that. But when you know it's something that you have to do, naturally it's going to have some hazy parts to it. It's not all going to be figured out. And that's the risky part of it. And so people who are embodying the exalted sun, they have this kind of natural ability to turn this passion that they have into a career. And they're able to make money doing what they love to do to the point where it doesn't even feel like work anymore. It's just who they are. They're expressing who they are. And yeah, it's my work, but I just love to do it. I would do it anyway, is what they say. So this can be even true of people who have really fringe interests or a really fringe profession. And the naysayers, they say they can't believe that somehow they made that into a job. Well, that's a person embodying that ability to take a risk and do what they're most passionate about doing. One example is the woman, I don't know her name, but a woman who during the lockdowns, she didn't go to work and she started making candles because she loved to make candles. She could have just bought a candle on Amazon if she wanted, but she loved to make them. She got so good at it and she was so into it that it became her full-time job. She made a company out of it almost accidentally, but she just naturally followed what she was most inspired to do. So it's simultaneously difficult and also easy to embody the exalted sun and to live as an exalted sun person. It's difficult because, as we talked about, the sun is a cruel planet and it forces us to make sacrifices throughout our life and to be a representation of who we are on the deepest level. And we talked a lot about how it's just not easy to do that. It takes a lot of effort and it takes consistency and hard work. So the healthy sun builds up this inner strength over time because of having to make these sacrifices and keep moving forward. And even the most talented people, born with the most talent, they don't get to the top of their profession, get to the top of whatever they do without a lot of consistency and a lot of hard work. And so being uncompromising in this way, being this kind of exalted sun, doing what it takes, it's difficult in general. It's just not an easy thing to do. And of course, there's so much uncertainty on those paths. and there's so much uncertainty climbing that mountain of your ambition. But as I said, embodying the exalted sun, it's difficult, but it's also easy in a certain sense, because when you take the attitude of it's all I can do, it's me, it's all I've got, I have to do this, it's all I can do because it's all I am, then it becomes easy. And what happens is that the conditioning from the external world, it steers us away from being this true, uncompromising self. So you receive conditioning from your parents, from the media, from culture, from friends, and once we sacrifice those ideas out of us, the conditioned self, once we get rid of all of those things, all we have left is ourself. And the better we are at being ourself, the easier being ourself becomes. So in that sense, it becomes very easy to just be yourself, to be this exalted sun, to be this bright, shining presence. And we get to the point when life can become easy because we've been training ourselves to be that pure expression of ourselves. So the solar consciousness in a pure state is living its life without any regrets. So all of the mistakes that they could have regrets about, they see those mistakes as just as important as the successes that they've had. And what having a regret essentially means is that you're saying that currently where you are in your life is not where you want to be. Because if it wasn't for some mistake along that path, you would be in a better place financially, spiritually, in any sense. But refusing to have regrets and to look at mistakes as important parts of your journey, this is acknowledging that you've made mistakes and that the mistakes had an important purpose to bring you to where you are now, to make you the more complete person you are today, and that you're a better person for having made them. So that's what an exalted sun attitude is that everything I did in my past, it's all informed who I am, and I'm proud of where I am, no matter if it reached my goals or not, and I'm moving forward. So the thing about climbing a mountain alone and going after your personal ambition is that it's a very lonely journey. And because Aries is a very solitary sign, it's about kind of going rogue and doing what it takes and focusing in on your own personal ambition. So this is one of the difficult parts of embodying the exalted sun, that you realize that life is this solo journey and that we're born alone and we die alone. And that other people, they come into our lives for a reason. Some of them stay into the end, but most of them leave at some point or another. So the exalted sun knows this on a deep level, that life is this solo journey. And it's able to come to terms with that and feel comfortable with it and not be afraid of losing people and having certain relationships break down, because you realize that your path is your path and you have to go on that. So an exalted sun learns to become comfortable with, you could think of it as a harsh reality, but it is a reality. The exalted sun can take that and deal with it and keep moving forward. So the phrase know thyself is often used in Gnosticism, and it's a very high level priority for a solar consciousness, a healthy solar consciousness. And just think of all of the angles that you can take that statement, know thyself. There's so much meaning to it because it provokes your inner self to discover who it is. So embodying the exalted sun means taking that inner journey, because the exalted sun is not only about the external journey and becoming successful and focusing on your successes and becoming and being ambitious and climbing the mountain of life and being a materially successful person. It's because it's not for everyone to be an extroverted person. You can have an exalted sun and become a monk. So the exalted sun also has this inner journey, this inner mountain to climb, and it's all within you. And they're living this hero's journey of self-development and self-discovery. So even though they're living their life and doing what they have to do and living out their inspired vision, all of that is happening internally, and they realize that it's this internal process of getting closer and closer to your soul's purest expression. It's like an alchemy. The alchemical idea of turning lead into gold is a physical process of physical alchemy, but it's the internal process. It's a metaphor for the internal process a person has, this journey of turning their base self into gold, into a pure expression of their highest self. So an exalted sun person, they not only realize that that's just as important as anything they could do successfully in the external world, but it's much more important, you could say, and that they really enjoy that inner journey that they're on. And so the exalted sun is really savoring that part of human experience, that inner hero's journey, that inner experience. So Aries is the sign that rules the head, and the sun is exalted in Aries because we know the sun is the natural leader. It's the natural leader within us. So embodying the exalted sun means that being able to assume leadership and step up to the plate when life calls you to do that. And so the number of people that you're leading over is nowhere near as important as having the confidence to be in the position to know the buck stops with me in this particular circumstance. And you could just be leading yourself. You could be all alone, a hermit, but you're able to be responsible for yourself. And that's a high level of responsibility of, say you're totally self-sufficient, doing everything that you want on a homestead or something. That's a lot of leadership, and you're having to lead your own life without the help of other people. That's an extreme case. But in just everyday circumstances, having to lead other people, maybe you don't always want to be in a leadership role, but when that leadership role comes, you're able to assume it, and you're able to be the one that other people look to and can lean on and depend on. So it's very important to be able to know when it's your time to be the leader. Some people love being a leader, some people hate it, but when the time comes for you to be it, the exalted sun is ready to take it on and ready to stand firm in whatever context that can be in. So what that kind of sums up to is knowing when you need to take control of a situation and to know when you have the control in your hands and to what to do with that control. And the idea of control is extremely important for a healthy solar consciousness. What do you control and what do you not control? And this alone is a massive subject, and it's a very fascinating subject. But when the sun is unhealthy, the person essentially doesn't understand power dynamics, or they don't understand them to a great extent. So they may not feel very self-empowered on the inside, the unhealthy solar consciousness, or they don't understand what power they actually have in their life and what power they have over other people. And so this leads to domineering behavior, what we call toxic masculinity. And remember that the sun is in women, so women have a divine masculinity, so they can also have toxic masculinity. But what that comes from is this lack of sense of an inner power that they have within themselves, and that they have to control others and their surroundings in this excessive way to feel powerful. But the healthy sun has this deep sense of self-empowerment. They are able to see that one thing that they have control over is themselves, and that they feel all of their power comes from that ability to have control over yourself. And that's the ultimate form of power. They can become powerful themselves because they can control themselves. And they won't really want control over other people, but they'll naturally find themselves in control of other people or be leaders because they're able to control themselves really well. So they might not ask for power, or they might not ask for be a leader, but they're naturally put there because they have this inner ability to control themselves. And what they want is, when they come to terms with control and power, these power dynamics, since they have this self-empowered mentality, they work towards empowering other people. And they're working towards helping others see how that they can discover within themselves how to become more self-empowered. Because they see that that's where they get their strength from, that they're able to rise to high levels in whatever they're doing because they have this inner power. And so they want to show other people how to do that. And they're not going to take advantage of other people and take power over them just because they look up to them. So it's this natural confidence, this natural kind of inner peace that they have, that they know that they can control themselves and no one else. And therefore other people look to them as a power source in and of themselves. People become like a magnet to people who are living in that kind of purity of self-empowerment.